It's evening in Israel, and it's afternoon in California, and also afternoon in Arizona. And we are live. I'm Dr. Tova Goldfein. This is TMS Roundtable. Rose, it's the middle of the night. We miss you. We love you, but the show must go on. I really wanted my love affair with the Love Heals to continue because we are all having a love affair with Love Heals, and we're all healing. And we're going to talk about that tonight. My guests are Dr. David Hanscom, who's in the movie and has a lot to say about love healing as well as other things, and Dana Croschere, who's the main character and producer and has accomplished amazing feats as well as on her journey to heal pain. Welcome. And so start Dana or Dr. Hanscom with just speaking about this amazing experience that's still brand new, still on the stove.
Yes. So we'll start with Dana.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Hanscom. Well, thank you so much for having me back on the show. I am thrilled to say that we released Love Heals January 18th through the 30th for the first time and had a remarkable response. But one of the things that was fascinating to me is people were really interested in the experts and wanted to learn more specifically about Dr. David Hanscom and what he could contribute to these conversations. People were really, I think, surprised by some of the information that he shared in the film. So what I would love to do is just give a little bit of background about how I found Dr. Hanscom, and then let him share more about some of the things he touched on in the film. So if you've seen me before or you've seen the film, you know that I ended up having 2 spine surgeries in 2020. And after those spine surgeries, I actually got progressively worse.
Can you say it started with the calf sprain? It's please just.
Yeah, that's in the trailer too. So I'll just briefly share. I was injured back in 2017. I was running on a treadmill. I sprained my calf. And, rest and all the things, ice, elevation, well, that pain didn't actually go away. It started to spread to my other leg and then ultimately up my leg into my sciatica. And then I was starting to have lower back pain. So I went the route of everything you can imagine with PT, chiropractic, dry needling, a lot of painful things. And I even tried like acupressure, acupuncture, all of like everything that I could possibly think of. And it wasn't helping. There were a few things that I wasn't addressing that were not of the physical place, right? In 2017, this is when it began, and it progressively got worse. So by the time 2020 came around, my body was just not functioning well. And I thought, my gosh, this must be a really bad structural issue. So my MRIs showed a herniated disc at L5-S1, as well as nerve compression, spinal stenosis, degenerative disc disease, all the things that you never want to hear from an MRI result. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's it. So they suggested surgery. When I say they, the medical community and doctors that I was seeing thought that was the only way to fix this issue. And it went against everything I thought in my mind and in my heart. I never wanted surgery, but I did it because I wanted my life back. And I thought that was the only way I could get that. So in 2020, in March, when COVID first hit, I actually went in for the first surgery. And 6 weeks later, it was identified I was not healing. In fact, I had a really bad spinal fluid leak, and I had to go back in for emergency surgery. And unfortunately, it wasn't an easily repairable issue. So I ended up in ICU for 7 days, and It was a really traumatizing experience. Whoa. And every time I had to have something else done, my nervous system was just not in a good place. Like I was really afraid. I went into it very, very fearful. So that added insult to injury. And by the time I got out of all of this, right before I found Dr. Hanscom, I was in a really dark place. I was not interested in any other procedures after that. I felt lost. I felt hopeless. And I really, especially in the hospital, I was losing my will to live altogether because the pain was not manageable. They couldn't figure out how to help me any longer. And I just literally would pray for death every night in the hospital. So that is how dark things became. And when I got home, my partner, who's also the director of Love Heals, she had started documenting my journey back in 2017. and continued to do so once I had surgery and came home. And it was just really dark. So one day I got an ad on my phone for Curable. And I was like, Curable for chronic pain sufferers. What is this? I had no idea. I'd never heard of it. But of course, I'm desperate. So I click on it and say, okay, what is this all about? And there was this free option to listen to some podcasts. And the very first thing I saw was this ex-spine surgeon talking about surgeries. And I was like, oh, goodness. So I clicked on it. I will never forget that day as long as I live, because the words that came out of Dr. Hanscom's mouth forever changed my life. And I was equal parts mortified and devastated. And then I was like, but wait, if there's more to this story, then I also have some hope for recovery. And his words just, to talk about how multiple people, you can send them for MRIs and have all of these, diagnoses, but don't experience pain. And then this percentage, I think he'll let him speak to this in a moment, but it was like something upwards of 60% of spine surgeries aren't actually successful. And in fact, make things much worse for people. And I was devastated. I was crushed because I thought I could have avoided this had I found him sooner, or found this work sooner, or found Curable sooner. But that wasn't my story. It wasn't meant to work out that way. And that's okay. I see the purpose in my pain now, thanks to Love Heals. But yeah, so I would love to pass it to David to talk a little bit more about some of those things that he shared on that podcast and what I learned in that moment, because it was so earth shaking for me. So thank you, David.
Thank you, Dana. Well, working with Dana has been extremely exciting. And people say, well, her story is unusual. She went from the depths of what I call the abyss to really living a very functional life. She's still not as good as she would like to be, but she's still on this journey where she will be. And what happened to me is that I was trained traditionally. I don't want to throw my colleagues under the bus, because this is the way we were trained, that 90% of pain is a structural problem.
Not here to bash doctors. That's not our job, but go ahead.
I'm sorry, what's that?
We're not here to bash. Our job in this show is not to bash doctors. It's to understand, inspire, educate, and integrate.
Yeah, but I will bash the medical profession. The business of medicine has kidnapped all of us. They've just flat out kidnapped us because we aren't allowed to talk to our patients. We don't know them anymore. People don't feel safe with us. And it turns out that feeling safe changes your body's chemistry. And so right now, the business of medicine has kidnapped everybody, the patients, the doctors, everybody's in hostage with the business of medicine. It's a huge problem. I quit my spine practice 3 years ago because I was seeing hundreds and hundreds of patients go pain-free, just like Dana. This is not an unusual story. Dana's story is typical in that it was hard. I mean, you've been in the hole for a long time. I call it the abyss. And I was in the abyss myself for over 15 years. I was trained at a very high-level spine surgeon. I did complex spinal deformity surgery, which is 6, 8, 10, 12 hours of surgery on a given person. And I was taught everything was structural. And I felt guilty if I didn't perform surgery on somebody, because I was, quote, their last hope. Well, then it turned out the success rate of a back fusion for back pain is 22%. I thought it was 90%. And I just instantly stopped. I go, well, I'm not going to do that. And my results were a little better, only because I worked so hard on rehab. But it turns out that chronic pain, and we'll talk about this in a second, mental and physical, are all inflammatory metabolic disorders. So it turns out anxiety is just a physiological state. Anxiety is actually the pain. The mental pain is a bigger problem because you cannot escape your thoughts, which creates a fight or flight response that you can't escape. So the essence of chronic pain, but also chronic diseases, is sustained exposure to what we call threat physiology. So you're full of inflammation, your metabolism's up, your brain itself is throwing off inflammatory cytokines, your nerve conduction is increased, so you feel the pain more. The blood flow changes from your gut and bladder, so you have irritable bowel and spastic bladder. So I went from a fearless spine surgeon. My strategy of suppressing anxiety was just bring it on. I could do anything, and I did. Until one day, driving across the bridge in Seattle when I was 37 years old, that's 30 years ago, I had a panic attack, but I didn't even know what anxiety was. So I thought anxiety was a psychological issue. I went to 13 solid years of psychotherapy. That's a lot. Well, it turns out that anxiety is just the state that is what you feel when you're in fight or flight. It's a physiological reaction to the stresses.
It's not a bad thing because we use anxiety to help us sometimes.
It's a gift. Well, none of us would survive more than a few minutes without anxiety. So there's a friend of mine, Bruce Lipton, and I've become quite close. We just did a series of 4 videos that will be released in about 2 weeks discussing this in detail. But the bottom line is that every animal, every living creature from the bacteria to humans has 3 ways they survive. They have their stresses or circumstances or the environment that they process. Some place in the system, whether it's a one-cell bacteria or a mammal with a very developed nervous system, has to interpret that sensory data, then it sends out signals to the body to respond. Tight muscles, racing hearts, your acid-base balance changes, your hormone changes. That's a physiological response. 90% of symptoms in your body are from your body's physiology. And medicine treats it the other way around. We treat 90% of the symptoms are structural, and that's just simply not true. So with Dana, all these findings she mentioned on MRI scan are completely normal. As you get older, as you get older, your spine starts to degenerate and break down. That has been clearly shown in research to not be the source of pain. And of course, we do surgery for, quote, disc degeneration. The success rate's 22%. Why would you expect otherwise? So we're basically operating on normally aging spines. So I estimate 60% of spine surgeries shouldn't be done, and maybe up to 80% now. And I looked at Dana's scans, and we had a blunt conversation about it. And I can't tell for sure. I wasn't there. It wasn't a completely normal spine. The symptoms could have correlated a little bit. But what we find out is that by calming down your body's chemistry, it improves nerve conductions, your sense of peace goes up, and jumping to the end of the story, and we'll work backwards. When we talk about love heals, when you're anxious and frustrated, your body's fired up. You're hyper alert, you feel things more. Life isn't good when you're anxious and frustrated or angry. Love means awareness. Love means safety. Love means connection. So again, that is not a psychological construct either. It is physiological. Love is a physiological state. And so when you're in that state, it's oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, growth hormone, anti-inflammatory cytokines. Your metabolism slows down. So again, love is not a psychological construct. It is physiological. Just like anxiety is not psychological construct. It's just a description of what you feel when your body's physiology is in fight or flight. So I'll finish here with one comment here, is that this unconscious survival response, and Bruce Lipton pointed this out really clearly, is anytime you're anxious or frustrated, it's just a danger signal. It's automatic. It's hardwired. There is nothing you can do. Nothing. Except understand that it's a gift. It's protecting you. That unconscious survival response processes about 20 million bits of information per second. The conscious brain processes 40, not 40 million, 40. 20 million versus 40. So you can take this gift of anxiety and anger, which is keeping you alive, and try to solve it with rational means. It can't work. So the way we approach healing is that we look at the environment, the circumstances, or the stresses. And when your stresses overwhelm your coping skills, you go into fight or flight. So there's ways of actually lowering your stress chemicals. You can increase the resiliency of your nervous system. And you can learn how to process stress better. And guess what? As your body chemistry changes, symptoms disappear. So I had 17 different physical and mental symptoms. They are gone. So it took me 15 years to figure this out, another 10 years to understand the neuroscience behind it, but it's crystal clear exactly what's going on. Medicine is ignoring the data. We're continuing to do spine surgery. I think last year there's 1.6 million spine surgeries done around the world last year. It's actually having a bigger impact on society than COVID. So it's a huge problem. That's just spine surgery, by the way. It's not the other medical specialties.
So I want to just summarize that and say a threat happens, and it could be anything from happy to sad to anger to fear. And we need to respond to that threat. When we say danger, a threat is something we need to listen to. Just comment on that for another moment, and then I want Dana to speak.
Well, let me redefine things for a second. So thoughts. Okay, so we know physical and mental threats are processed in the similar part of the brain. You get the same chemical reaction. So we know that unpleasant thoughts create a fight or flight response. And since you cannot escape your thoughts, you have a sustained fight or flight. Repressed thoughts and emotions are even worse. They actually create even a bigger response as sustained. So whether you experience the thoughts or suppress them, either way, your body's in fight or flight. So you have to learn how to process them differently. So anxiety, again, we're not trying to avoid anxiety. We're trying to process it. And I discussed developing a working relationship with it. So then emotions are what you feel. So when you feel fight or flight, you feel anxious or angry. So emotions are your body's physiology. When you're on the beach, having a beer, relaxing, and you feel really positive emotions. But again, you're feeling your body's chemical state or the physiology. So you can't control your thought, but you can regulate the physiology. And again, we can talk about that in a little bit more detail later. But the bottom line is, and I'm really curious I haven't really actually talked to Dana directly about this, but you tried a lot of different things, right? Things hadn't worked. And the word I use is the abyss. You tried everything, nothing's worked. People don't believe you. Doesn't feel very good. So what happens is that there's 2 research papers that document that the impact of chronic pain on a person's quality of life is similar to having terminal cancer, except it's worse. It's actually worse than having terminal cancer because you're trapped and there's no way out. There's no hope. So Dan, I'll ask you a question where people that have gotten better, including myself, I mean, my symptoms are gone. All 17 symptoms are gone. And it's miraculous. My migraines are gone. The ringing in my ears are gone.
Please say, because this is important for the listeners, you still get anxiety, you still get stress, but you are aware.
Right.
And Dana could talk about how she handled in such enormous stress, was aware that she was having it, that she had it, her anger, her fear, and still was able to apply these methods in her life with the movie or without the movie. She was able, with your help and other people's help, to apply this to her life and heal.
So I'm curious, Dana, I know we know each other's stuff really well, and we both agree that love is a physiological state. Love is the same as awareness, and it's the opposite of anger. I mean, anger is a very heightened fight or flight state, where love is exactly the opposite. So it's really a physiological state of true safety. If you trust somebody, you feel comfortable, you feel safe, that's safety. That's a profound shift in your body's physiology. And people really do heal. This is not type of psychological. Let's just try this, and this. This is not psychological. It is physiological. Anyway, I'm curious, when you heard those words, I don't think I've ever heard you really be clear what you actually heard when I was talking, because as you know, I talk a lot. just saying.
You got a lot to say. What you say is beautiful and wonderful and healing. So don't worry.
So I'm just really curious, what was different about what you heard?
Well, I think I'd rather spend time kind of summarizing how I got to the point that I am today with some of the things that I've heard you say over the course of over a year now. Okay. One of the things that I will never forget when I found your work was how desperate I needed community. I was trying to go at this healing journey just with my partner, Chrisanna, and we had no help. We had no connection, no community. Thanks to COVID, people were afraid of each other. So I was, in our house 24/7, just spiraling about how I am going to get better. How is our life ever going to change? And when I found your work and the doc journey, which is the direct your own care journey that you teach, it gave me a community to feel like I wasn't alone. When I heard somebody had 20-something surgeries in their life and still found a way to heal from chronic pain, it gave me hope. So I first want to say that for the longest time, I didn't have hope or community or anybody that I thought understood what I was going through. And you provided that through those Q&A sessions that I would diligently go to twice a week and feel connection. So first and foremost, I was doing everything I was doing to heal without community, connection, and hope, which doesn't work. And what I was doing was being very hypervigilant and catastrophizing. And people don't really talk about this. Like, I really felt like a victim. So my mindset was in a victim state, which
by the way, you were a victim. You were a victim,
I was.
right?
You're
Sure.
right.
Okay, but on
But
the
I
other
didn't
side
have
of the
to live
victim, other side of the abyss is the light of day. And that's
right.
Well, just remember, being in physical or mental chronic pain, you are a victim. It's a bad place to be. And so I think I'm just saying one quick thing here. So as far as this entire process, it's actually rooted in disbelief. Because you've tried everything, nothing's going to work. Why is David Hanscom's thing going to work? Why is anything going to work? So remember, your brain's trying to protect you. And so it's always going to go to skepticism. So that's where you start and that's where you stay. Hope comes from, okay, I'm here in this hole and I see a light. That's hope. So it's not about generating enough belief in these belief systems or whatever. That's actually counterproductive. But actually digging into what actually is and then just working your way out of it through things that stimulate your brain to change. Is that a fair statement, Dana? I know people get a little...
that you're a victim, but believing that you can move from this place. Is that what you're saying?
Not even belief. I mean, I'm serious. How long have you been you've been in pain for a while, right, Dana?
But accepting, did she have to accept her reality?
No.
No? Okay, say
No,
it.
I don't. I don't like I developed a working relationship with, remember, pain is a gift. Now, when it short circuits, it's a curse, but it's a signal that says danger. And she just listened to the signal. So when it short circuits, there's a way to unplug those circuits. But in general, it's a signal, and you have to pay attention to it. And if you suppress the signal, it fires up the nervous system even more. So it turns out that positive thinking is actually more inflammatory than actually experiencing the thoughts. So remember, so I'll ask Dana this question. So love is about connection, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to connect with what is. So what is deep skepticism. That's what you have to connect with. Then you can connect on the way out of the hole with all sorts of different things, but it's about deep connection, what's actually real. So again, it's not about generating belief, but when you see a way out and you see other people's stories, that generates hope. And going back to the neuroscience, by the way, they have found out that hope and optimism is actually anti-inflammatory. Since anxiety is an inflammatory disorder.
Belief is biological.
Right. It actually drops down inflammatory markers. It physically drops down inflammatory markers to have hope. Anyway, sorry about that. I didn't mean to interrupt that much.
No,
I interrupt all the time. So.
I'm patient. So the one thing that I didn't, it's okay. The one thing I really didn't understand going into this was how much my previous life trauma and suppression was still playing a role in my current day ability to heal. I didn't recognize the fact that even though my life felt like I was living a good life and I was okay, that there is always this undertone of, dis-ease within my body and, the alarm signal stuck in the on position of my nervous system always being heightened, even though I thought I was at rest. And there'd be times I could just be laying and my heart would beat out of my chest. Well, part of the equation for me was recognizing that I had a lot of things still in my body that needed to be released. And I can tell you one thing, David, about love. It is awareness, but here's the other thing. When I found out that I could have maybe avoided this and done something different in my life, I went straight into overdrive. I'm a perfectionist. I'm always trying to do the thing the best possible way that I can, putting all this pressure on myself. So I'm doing all the healing modalities that I'm learning, the expressive writing and separating from my thoughts and breath work and doing meditations and, settling my nervous system. But I was doing it so diligently that I was having the opposite impact. Right. And it wasn't until I stopped trying so hard to heal, because that was my full-time job. All I wanted to do was heal. Right. But I wasn't giving my body and my brain the environment that tells myself I'm safe.
Right.
I was like, I have to get out of this. I'm striving. I'm moving towards something. I'm healing. And it wasn't working. What finally started to work was getting into my body, releasing trauma that I was holding on to from the past, which you'll see in the film is done in ways that are very helpful. It's, some people the journaling and expressing things very vulnerably and openly, and then, you know, separating from thoughts is helpful. Some people breath work, meditation. But for me, the missing link was this energetic need and this flow that was all out of sorts because I had so much stored up. I wore never being angry like a badge of honor. And I will never forget David saying in one of his Q&A sessions, if you tell yourself that you've never been angry, you're not an angry person, then you are suppressing. And I was like, maybe. And so I actually accessed anger even during the retreat, and I released anger that I did not realize was stored within me. I was angry.
Right.
And it felt so good to find it for the first time. But if it wasn't for all of these different factors, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And the one thing that I can tell you that was so powerful for me was to stop trying to fix myself and recognizing that I was not broken. I was able to move forward into a life that I wanted as I would allow myself to do so with no fear, just saying, this isn't going to break me. I can do this one thing today, and that's going to move me one step closer to the life that I know I want to live again. And when I started having more compassion and patience and kindness for myself, that gave me the oxytocin, all those love chemicals. I never loved myself before. I never did. But it was like, wait a minute, you deserve the same love and understanding and patience and kindness that you give to everybody else in your life. And as soon as you turn that around, what happens is you give your body the environment and your brain the environment to relax. And that really does give yourself the ability to heal things in your life. And it isn't just about getting out of pain. This journey was not, I didn't know it then, but it was not like the finish line is when I don't feel pain. That was this misconception that I had. I was healing every step of the way, whether it was emotional things, mental, yes, physical is what my main goal was. But as soon as I released the outcome, and David, you really taught me this a lot throughout the time I spent with you in those sessions, it was like, release the outcome. You're not here to fix yourself. That just keeps you in a heightened state of trying to do something and achieve something. And it was like, okay, I'm just going to be kind to myself and love myself through this, because this is a hard journey and I'm not alone, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual. There's a lot of traumas in life and people that are suffering and struggling. So for me, it was like this release. I had to let go of the outcome. And I still have had to let go of the outcome today. Like, oh, I wish I was this much further in my journey. And you know what's happening? In the last month, I'm feeling less and less and less and less physical pain. It's happening. I'm healing every day.
I told you so.
No, you did.
I did.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I always watch. I mean, everybody does it differently. I have people within weeks just blow out of pain. But the key issue here is that emotional pain does manifest as physical symptoms. And people go, well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, it makes all the sense in the world. Remember, emotions is what you feel. It's your body's physiology. Well, for instance, if your sodium level is normally at 140, if it's down to 120, you go into a coma. I mean, your body's physiology has everything to do with symptoms. So when your anxiety is a inflammatory metabolic state, chronic pain is an inflammatory metabolic state. By the way, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, cardiac disease, hypertension, adult on diabetes, obesity are all inflammatory metabolic disorders. They're all the same thing. Chronic disease, including chronic pain, is sustained exposure to threat physiology. And the essence of healing is training your body to go into safety. So again, going back to the depth of love heals is about connection. And by the way, I do want to differentiate right now about what you just talked about focus, because if your focus is on fixing, from a neuroplasticity standpoint, your brain's going the wrong direction. So it's like I'm a bad golfer. The reason I'm a bad golfer is I'm always trying to fix my bad golf swing instead of actually creating what I want. So the two parts to healing are using tools, just tools. It's not a fixing process, it's just learning tools to develop this working relationship with this powerful thing called anxiety and anger. You just get to work with it. So that's part of it, but solving that doesn't actually give you a good life. So to have a good life, you actually have to live a good life. So as you start moving forward with or without your pain, and you were an incredible example of this, as you start moving forward towards your vision, then that's where your brain develops. And it happens very quickly. But you can't move forward until you let go. So this happens simultaneously every day. You've got to let go. And again, anxiety and anger happen every day. And then you want to move towards what do you want? And I'm going to just challenge the public right now, sort of aside from chronic pain, is that we're upset about politics, we're upset about COVID, we're upset about masks, vaccines, all sorts of stuff. Okay, I know what you're against, but what are you for?
Beautiful.
What are you for? I mean, what do you want? And so that's the question I ask everybody, including myself. What do I want? I personally want to bring joy into my life. And as you know, Dana, one of the basic rules of healing is not discussing your pain or medical care or complaining, malicious gossip, giving advice, because you're just firing up your nervous system. So my question, if you want to stay angry about vaccines, for instance, let's just take that one. Doesn't matter what your opinion is, whether you feel like you're angry at the anti-vaxxers, you're an anti-vaxxers, angry at the vaccination people. There's about 12 categories of things you can do to promote public health. I mean, do you want to make the world a better place, or do you just want to stay angry? So it doesn't really matter what you're angry about. That anger adds to the collective consciousness in a very negative way. So the challenge is, what do you want? I'm not into positive thinking, but as you pointed out, I'm into positive vision. Where do you want to go? How do you want to get there? So as your brain moves that direction, you simply use the pain circuits less, and your brain physically changes. So that's the key issue. Positive vision is critical. A lot different than positive thinking, which covers up negative thinking. That's a way of suppressing. But my question to those of you who are angry, do you want to hold on to your anger, whatever you're angry about? And you might also notice if you give up your anger about a given topic, it goes someplace else. Anger is normal, it's powerful, it's seductive. And of course, love is the opposite. And I also say one thing, because I actually belong to a group called a Charter for Compassion, which is another name for love. And they had all these campaigns of compassionate cities, compassion, which is great. But I point and say, look, when you're triggered and angry, compassion goes right out the window. So you've got to so all of us have compassion. We all have love, but it gets drowned out by these survival circuits. So the key is you learn to process anger and anxiety and other different negative reactions, and then love actually emerges. Is that a fair statement, Dana? You don't have to generate love. It's already there.
It exists within us. And
Every
as
one of
you
us.
process all of these things, that is the core of actually what exists within. And
Right.
so in the film, you see that displayed beautifully. People speak about their experience, and it was like, as I processed all of these things and let go and released, what they found at the core of their being, like at a soul level, was love and compassion for themselves and others, which is like our natural state of being. We just lose sight of it throughout our life.
The body physiologically, excuse me for interrupting, the body physiologically is always striving for homeostasis. Right. Always striving for the good. Even in chiropractic school, they said if you give an adjustment that's not in the right direction, the body will take it in the best way it can. And that's the body's knowledge, which is a whole spiritual another show. But the body is made for love, like Rose says, and the physiological body is looking for healing, is looking for balance, is looking to communicate with the immune system and nervous system, right, David? What do you say a few things?
Yeah, and once you understand the process, it's not that hard to regulate your body's physiology. And it's also not very hard to actually stimulate your brain, neuroplastic. In other words, if you stimulate where you want to go, that's your brain actually develops. They've done studies where they put blindfolds on people for 5 days solid. They do research MRI scans on people, and within those 5 days, the hearing centers move into the visual centers and take over. It happens within days, this neuroplasticity. So your brain's going to develop where it actually places attention. Wow. So if you want to stay angry and complain or talk about your pain or, quote, try to solve it. And I did the same thing as you did. I spent 15 years, I call myself an epiphany addict. It consumes your life. And why wouldn't it? And so unfortunately, as you try to fix, why your attention's on the problem. So there's a phase that you have to do that. I mean, you have to learn the tools. You have to learn how to process. You do learn that you use these tools every day, all day long. They become very automatic. And as you just go about living your life, you just process the anxiety and anger more quickly. And that's a whole different topic. But then you start living the life that you want. And Dana, it looks like you've got a good start on that.
Yes. Yeah.
So
I visualized it though, David. Like I literally, to your point, instead of waking up every day comparing my pain to the day before and how it's going to prevent me from doing A, B, and C and D in my life, I would start waking up being grateful and saying, what is it that I want to do today? And then I would visualize myself. I mean, Chrisanna and I literally got to the point where we would visualize me at the top of a mountain, because that seemed like the most ridiculous thing that I would be capable of. But I love hiking and I love that feeling. And it was like over the summer, it happened. And we looked at each other and we were like, this is what we've been envisioning and working towards, instead of stressing out about every day what it was that I wasn't capable of doing. That was a huge.
But it happened because the visualization is chemical as well.
It is.
Right.
Exactly. So talk more about that, Dana. It happened because you taught your brain that that's possible.
Yeah, that's Bruce Lipton's thing, right? The biology of belief.
And Joe Dispenza's thing.
Yes, there's so many now scientific ways to back that information. But I mean, the power of our minds are so amazing. You know, if you visualize putting a lemon in your mouth, but you're not actually doing it, your salivary glands are going to respond. That's physiological. Like, you can't argue with that. So like David pointed to earlier, if your brain is in this pattern and these cyclical thoughts, and you're thinking about the past and these traumas that happened to you, what do you think your physiology is doing? It's responding to that. It can't give you an environment to heal when you're keeping your nervous system fired up based on just thoughts and beliefs and all of that. So once you can start to have the awareness, shift your thoughts and beliefs and start working towards what life you really, really want to live, your cells in your body start to like literally respond. Like, oh, we have this space to heal now. We don't have to be sick. We don't have to be in pain. We actually are moving this way. And I am literal living proof that it works. That is what happened.
Well, and so am I. I mean, I was gone and I was actively suicidal. I have 20 medical colleagues who have actually committed suicide. And again, this place I call the abyss is a very, very dark spot, and nobody's listening to you. You're not believed. You're bounced around the medical profession like crazy. That's getting worse, by the way, over the last 10 years. And that's why I quit my practice, because we are actively hurting our population really badly. So I go back to one comment you made very early on, Dana, about how these doctors told you this, and this, that you had disc degeneration, et cetera. And it basically scared the heck out of you. Mm-hmm. And there's a thing, we'd heard a lecture last week by Dr. Tor Wager, W-A-G-E-R, out of Dartmouth, who's one of the most brilliant neuroscientists in the world. And by the way, we have an upcoming pain summit, February 26th and 27th, and Dr. Wager will be one of the speakers. And if you, again, I'm just going to put a little plug in here for that pain summit, Tova. It's on my website.
I'll advertise it. I think it's free.
No, it's a paid course. It's continuing education for healthcare professionals. But even though you're not a healthcare professional, you won't understand a lot of the science, but you understand enough of it to make a big difference. You understand the why of what we're doing. But these are the grandfathers of all the major fields of what we're talking about, the mind-body experience. Every one of these people are just all-stars. So we're excited about that. But the bottom line is what Dr. Wager talked about was called the Nocibo Effect, is that there's called the predictive model of coding, that if I put my hand on a hot stove, my brain's predicting, well, that's going to hurt, so I don't do it. So what happens, everything you do is also based on past experiences about what's safe and not safe. So if your expectation, something's going to hurt, there's lots of research behind this one, your brain actually feels more pain. So what happens is called the Nocibo Effect, is that doctors put in this belief system that you're miserable, you're 80 years old. I got one gentleman who's extremely successful businessman in New York. He was told that he had the spine of an 80-year-old. He's 45 years old. His disc degeneration wasn't even hardly there. So some surgeon told him that, He was in chronic pain for 8 solid years, just desperately trying to get better, had every resource on this planet to solve it. And within 2 weeks, he was fine. And 6 months later, he's fine. 3 years later, he's fine. No limitations. So what happens, that's why I have to stay sort of calm, because I'm upset about this, because you have a surgery and the solutions are actually disturbingly simple. Is that a fair statement, Dana? I mean,
Yes.
if I'd known about this, in grade school even, I'm not that, I know you have a different attitude than I do. You're more enlightened than I am about this. But I had 15 years in this chronic pain hole that really just didn't have to happen. If I just known the basic principles, really in grade school, and it's also high school chemistry class that when you're threatened, you go into fight or flight. That's high school science class. The data shows that only 10% of physicians are actually acknowledging the data. So we're doing surgery on spines that have been documented to not be the source of pain. We're telling people that they are the source of pain. Then we're doing over 20 billion of spine surgeries, $20 billion a year of spine surgery in the US alone on normally aging spines. There's no data. It's not one research paper that says that it works. There are thousands of research papers that talk about the neuroscience of chronic pain. It's a neurochemical state. And doing surgery on anxiety doesn't work. It can't work. And we're really hurting people. So what happened to you when the surgeons told you all these different things is called the Nocibo Effect. And as you said, your pain actually got worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I want Dana and Dr. H to answer this question, because there are some people in our audience that are in just chronic pain and are stuck. And so the Nocibo has become a habit that they cannot believe that they can get out. So, you got out, and Dana, you are free and on your healing journey. And I want to say that you guys are special, but we're all not special. It can happen to anyone. Anyone can do this. But the people that are in chronic pain for so many years, talk a little bit about how they can, because there's nothing new. Like, they'll keep going to one more doctor or one more podcast. There's nothing new. We're saying they have to do what? Dana first, and then they have to, go ahead.
Well, first I want to address what David was just talking about. I was told a lot of things about my spine, about my dura, about all of it. And all it did every time I would have an appointment or have these discussions was put so much fear into my body. So I was afraid to move. I was afraid to twist. I was afraid to bend. I was afraid I was going to re-herniate a disc. I mean, they put so much fear, bless you, into you that even after the surgeries, I wasn't given an opportunity to do things that were going to make me feel safe. So without ever feeling safe, I was not going to heal properly. So I think figuring out ways to help you feel safety in your body, in your mind, in your environment is so critical, because without safety, your nervous system is never going to be able to relax in a way that it needs to give your system the environment it requires to really heal. And I couldn't have done it without that, without taking steps towards things to recognize that I'm actually safe in doing so. But Tova, to answer your question, I couldn't have done this alone. It was like every step, every person, it was like I would read something about mind body, this connection and what I was experiencing. And it was like, oh, that science just landed. And now I understand something better. And then I would have like this opportunity to practice something like expressive writing and release all of these words that I would never say out loud. And then I would get a step further. And then I learned through meditation how to find compassion and love. Like, I would look up self-love and compassion meditations to really forgive myself and forgive those that have hurt me. So that was like one piece of that puzzle for me. And then it was adding movement and getting into my body that I was so terrified to do, that took me to the next level. And then in the film, you'll see this energetic component, which people may or may not agree with, but everything is energy. And my system was not flowing correctly. I had blockages and things that I was holding on to. And so I went to a really great therapist who helped me release some of these things, who's very much into the somatic things, and they understand these things are trapped within our body. I read the book, Body Keeps the Score, and was like, oh my gosh, this is me.
It's a tough book.
Every component. Yeah, I read it in 2 days after surgery because I was so like, oh my gosh, I had to understand.
But to apply that knowledge is the key. To apply it to the personal life is important. That people can, because I know people say, well, I don't have, everything you did didn't cost a cent. Just so people know, it didn't cost a cent to do what you did. So it's important for people to know that they're not, I'm going to use the word, they're not a victim of their pain. They have to understand, like what you said, that they do. Healing is possible. I want people to know at the very deepest, darkest abyss where the fish don't see the day of light, healing is possible.
It is, but there's not a silver bullet. And I think that's where I got hung up was, well, what is the one thing that I'm going to do that's going to like change everything for me? And it really wasn't that. It was just all of these different things. Like some people can get out of pain or chronic illness by reading something that really triggers their brain and they can build new neural pathways just on knowledge alone. Well, I couldn't. It didn't work for me. And it doesn't work that way for most people. So it was like, I didn't want to give up, but I also didn't want to be so hyper vigilant about this is what I need to do to heal. It was like, honestly, Tova, it was like releasing the outcome, stop feeling like I had to be at a certain place every day, stop comparing myself to everybody else, and just love myself really well through this process. Have a daily practice, get into my body, connect with the deepest parts of me, live authentically, stop people pleasing. That's not why we're here. And that will never keep your system cannot function well when you are living out of alignment with who you are innately. Like you have to be able to express yourself authentically in this life in order to really heal. So if you're in a mismatched job, in a relationship that's causing you a lot of stress, it's abusive, you're relying on other people for your happiness and to feel love, that is going to make it very challenging to give your body and brain the signal that I'm safe and I can heal now. Because some people can't get out of pain or illness because it's their body's way of actually being really smart and keeping their body and brain thinks that that's keeping them safe. Right. Well, if I'm ill, then I don't have all these expectations of being this or doing that. Or maybe my significant other is going to show some compassion to me. Do you know I had this direct correlation at some point that I have had these mind-body illnesses my entire life. Wow. And I was in a very, very dysfunctional, like childhood situation. And I had trauma. If you see in the film, I was very vulnerable. I shared some things that I went through. But here's the deal. Like, I did everything that I could to keep myself safe, and my body actually gave me stomach aches. I had surgery when I was 6 years old for something, and it's because I was so stressed from suppression and living in an environment where I couldn't actually be myself that it showed up in my body, and it shows up in different ways for everybody. One person might have heart palpitations and can't figure it out, or someone else has migraines, someone else has IBS, and someone else has chronic pain, but it all points to the same thing.
So true. Dr. Dana, psychologist and doctor in you. And that's what we're saying. We're here to be the messengers. We're messengers for you. You are the doctor and you are the therapist, and you can do this. David, do you want to do this? We have about 5 or 6 minutes left before we have to go. Would you like to?
There's 3 parts to healing. First of all, within situation, there's awareness. In other words, you have to understand the problem of nature chronic pain. You have to understand your situation. You have to understand the nature of the solution. So awareness is the first step. The second thing is chronic pain, including all chronic disease, are complicated. They're affected by many, many factors, and we're throwing random simplistic solutions at a complex problem. So the second part of the equation is actually treating every aspect simultaneously. It's like fighting a forest fire. Everything counts. The third part is the only person who can solve your problem is you. So it's awareness, addressing every aspect simultaneously, and then you taking control. So the starting point is just simply doing homework. Just do some homework. So you don't have to, again, it says rooted in disbelief. There's nothing's worked before. This is not going to happen now. Why should it work? So you just stay there. That's what your brain's supposed to do. So remember, love is connection and commitment. So you're committing to your own well-being, but you have to connect with what is there. And people say, "Oh, I'm not angry." And when I ask them the question, "Well, what about the chronic pain?" They just explode and going, "I'm not angry." Well, guess what? You are. All of us have anger. You cannot survive without anger. So the first step is just do the homework. So I'll just give you my particular pathway out of the hole. Is I did write a book called Back in Control, A Surgeon's Roadmap Out of Chronic Pain. It basically reflects my journey out of chronic pain. And I had 17 different symptoms. A person asked about the different symptoms. And if you look in the book on the websites, there's over 30 different symptoms that occur from chronic pain: migraine headaches, skin rashes, irritable bowel, spastic bladder. I had them all. They're gone. I had a full-blown obsessive compulsive disorder, which is brutal. That's gone. So the reason why there's so many different physical symptoms, if you just visualize your body chemistry on fire, including your brain throwing off inflammatory proteins called cytokines, you're hypersensitized. You start hyper feeling everything. As you calm down your body's physiology and go into safety/love, you've changed your physiology. You've taken control. So again, you can't control your thoughts. You can't control most of your circumstances, but you have a lot to say about how you react to them. But I do want to finish one really critical point. People look at stress as a psychological issue. It's not. It's your body's total response to a threat. So
Wow.
Dana, why do you think your heart was pumping? Because it's adrenaline. Why are you sweating? That's not psychological. That's your body's physiology. So, by the way, Tova, you may not agree with me on this term, but I don't use the term mind-body syndrome anymore. It's just a unit response to the world. You have a central nervous system that processes everything, sends out commands to your body to survive, adjust your physiology by the millisecond, and that's how we survive.
No, I agree with you. It's just another level. So would you call it a stress illness, what Dr. Clark calls it?
No. Well, I think that's a better term, by the way. So I don't put a term on it. I just this is how your body responds to the world.
It's
So
brilliant.
to me, it's basically stress physiology versus safety physiology. And so the essence of healing is just using tools to develop this working relationship with your survival reactions. And then the healing occurs with the film that Dan's put together is love, which is safety, connection, commitment, awareness. That doesn't exist at the same time that anger does. But remember, they both occur every day. In other words, there's not just one spot that you get to and all of a sudden life is good forever. It's just a learned set of skills you become very good at. But the real healing occurs as you pursue love or safety. That's the essence of the solution.
Can't that, because I know you interviewed the cognitive behavior doc, not only did you feeling good, the doctor who wrote Feeling Good, and can we talk about if we can learn a new habit and a new pathway? That's one of the major healings. Can we say that simply? If we can practice something, even if it's hard, that's a sign that there's resistance. If we practice, can we say that? Because talk about the book that you about habits. I mean, this is what I just want to mention, how people can do this on their own by learning a new habit and the talent code. Right.
So Bruce Lipton is a person who said this the clearest. I mean, you cannot control these automatic survival reactions, but you can reprogram them. So it takes repetition, and some days are good, some days are not so good. So as far as the sequence I recommended, you write the book Back in Control. Bruce Lipton and I are putting a series of 4 videos together that really explain this in a lot of detail. I do have this process called the DOC journey, Direct Your Own Care Journey, that represents the evolution of patient successes. And it's based much more on the physiology than my old processes were. And that's been consistent. It also includes group coaching. And then we just released an app this week based on my wife's work and our workshops based on awareness, hope, forgiveness, and play. So again, the solution is play. So it's a very experiential
hard
app.
To play when you're in pain.
Right. Well, again, that's what I'm saying. You have to do both. You have to find ways to release yourself from the pain, not fix it. And then you move forward and it goes back and forth every day. But eventually you get better at enjoying your life. You get better at processing the anxiety. Again, you can't get rid of it. Please be okay being anxious and angry and in pain. You have to learn how to tolerate that. I don't like the word acceptance, but you develop this working relationship. But if you're using play to distract yourself, that's actually inflammatory. Obsessive play to distract yourself has actually been shown out of UCLA to be inflammatory, makes it worse. So that is that connection and sense of purpose. Again, love is connection and awareness. That's where the healing actually does occur, but it's physiological.
Dana,
I'd like to add one thing, Tova, real quick.
A few things, and also please talk about the movie, because this is just the pin dropping. We are in a movement here, and I'll have you once a month to talk about love healing, because it is the farthest. It is so woo-woo. It is science. It is what we need on every level. And I'm just
by the way, I just have to say what I have to interrupt you just for a second. So what I get upset about, honestly, is that mainstream medicine right now is just arrogant. They have no data. None of this is woo-woo. Your body's physiology is basic, deeply documented neuroscience. There's nothing woo-woo about this. And that's what's so exciting to me, because there's such an arrogance in medicine. We're doing $20 billion of spine surgery on normal spines. That's arrogant. So we have no data. The emperor has no clothes. We don't. We're just not following the data. So that's been my thing for 25 years. Let's just take known data and just practice what we know. So what we're talking about here, when we talk about love heals, this is not some out there process. This is your body's physiology. This is safety. It's been documented in thousands of research papers to be the thing to do. Anyway, that's my final say.
Thank you, David. Well, thank you. One thing I wanted to add when you talked about having fire in your brain. So you might use a different term and different ways to describe things, but what you see in the film, like the basic principle of healing is water up, fire down. And it's the exact thing you're saying. So you have to have a cool, calm head. Like you have to get that fire in your belly where it's meant to be. This is where that concept and that principle is really shown in the film and explained really well. It is a scientific thing in nature and in humans.
Right.
So what we do that really made a difference for me is that actually, you might see things in the film and you're like, what are they doing? Well, we're creating the right energy balance and energy flow in our bodies so that when you have anxiety and stress and you're stuck in your cyclical thoughts, if you get into your body, you're not forcing yourself to stop thinking. You're giving yourself something different to focus on, creating that fire in your gut. And this is also where your oxytocin, like this is where our immune system lives. This is where happy chemicals live. And so I just hope people watch the film to really understand from a very holistic perspective how all of this works together. And you're right, it's not woo-woo. Some people look at it maybe that way, but it's because they're not understanding like the true science behind all of this. It is physiological, 100%. So as far as the film, go ahead.
Tell us about the movie.
No. Yes, that's what I was going with next. Yeah. So the movie, you can find it at www.lovehealsfilm.com. Yeah. We're also on Instagram and Facebook at Love Heals Film. And one of the things that we've recently done that is getting a lot of positive response is I created a Facebook group. It's a community for Love Heals Film. So you can join that community, and we're going to be having a gathering once a month, hopefully, if it goes well. We already have about 25 people signed up for the 24th of February. Mm-hmm. And then the other thing that you'll see is that our release of the film is with partners. So it's very limited. We're not selling it to Netflix yet. We want to make sure that our film is getting as far out and having the best reach that it can possibly have, because once you sell a film, you lose rights to it. You can't distribute it yourself. Right. So we're looking for partners to host screenings and to help us get this film out. We have an amazing partner named Eileen with Lavender. So we actually have on our website, you can purchase a ticket right now. It's $15 and you have access through the entire screening window, which is February 25th through the 28th. You can watch it as many times as you'd like. And with that, there are a lot of free gifts, like a healing workbook, an MP3, some self-love stuff. You can actually connect with an energy healing practitioner for an intro session and a bunch of other goodies. So now is the time. This is like a really, remarkable partnership with a lot of value to add to people's healing journeys. So lovehealsfilm.com. You can purchase your ticket now and watch it between the 25th
and it's already in like 11 languages. It's been translated.
Yes.
And I'm translating it to Hebrew. So anyone who wants to bring it to their country, to their culture, this is a world phenomena, and it's happening right here. And so people can watch the film. Chrisanna put the link on, and you'll see David there. You'll see Dr. Bruce Lipton, some amazing doctors, Dr. Les, Ari, unbelievable. Also, please don't forget, Dr. David Hanscom has a podcast, I think every week or twice a week, with amazing people talking about this information. So we're just repeating, and nothing new under the sun. We're just here to educate and inspire. And I'm always here to help you. Rose is here. Dana is like a phone call away. Even David's available on vacation and whatever, but we're all here to help you and support you, because this is a community. TMS Roundtable, Dr. Hanscom's a community. Thank your wife and your kids, Dr. David, and Dana. You and Chrisanna have created an incredible movement, and I'm in love. And anyone can be part of it. So be in touch with us. Thank you so much. I'm blessed. We'll meet again.
Well, the fun part for me is I get to see the before and after Dana, right?
Yes.
And I also
Thank you,
know
David.
what Dana doesn't know is that she's actually just barely getting started. So I actually look at where you are as the jumping off point. That's why I get frustrated with the doctrine, because people get better and they stop. So the best part is actually moving into the life that you want, and that's where you're headed. It's a very powerful way. So I'm excited for you.
Wonderful. To be continued.
Thank you.
To be continued. Bye. Mwah. Okay, we're off.